Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the starship Aurora and watched the stars bend around them as they dropped out of faster-than-light travel. The year was 2387 and humanity had only just learned how to travel between the stars. Jake had been testing the new drive systems when his communication officer suddenly went pale and started pointing at her screen. "Captain, we are getting a signal from something big," she said with a shaky voice. "Really big?" Jake walked over to look at the display and felt his heart skip a beat. The object on the screen was massive beyond anything humans had ever built. It looked like a crystal palace floating in space with lights that pulsed in patterns. Too perfect to be natural. The ship was at least 10 times bigger than their largest space station back on Earth. "This is Captain Morrison of the Earthship Aurora," Jake said into the communication system. "Please identify yourself." The response came immediately, but not in any language Jake had ever heard. The sounds were musical and flowing like water over rocks. Then suddenly, the voice changed and started speaking perfect English. "Greetings, Captain Morrison of the species called humans. I am Ambassador Vexthal of the Zephyrian Collective. We have been waiting for your kind to develop space travel. We come with an invitation that will change your world forever." Jake looked around his bridge crew and saw the same mix of excitement and fear on every face. First contact with aliens was something humans had dreamed about for centuries, but now that it was happening it felt overwhelming. An invitation, Jake repeated carefully. "Yes, Captain Morrison. Your species has reached the level of development where you can join the Galactic Trade Federation. This is a peaceful alliance of 12 different species that has brought peace and prosperity to our part of the galaxy for over 3,000 of your Earth years." The alien ship moved closer and Jake could see that it was even more beautiful up close. The crystal walls seemed to glow from within and strange symbols flowed across its surface like living text. "We would like to meet with your leaders," Ambassador Vexthal continued. "We have much to offer humanity, including technologies that will solve your energy problems and heal your damaged planet." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. How did they know about Earth's problems with climate change and resource shortages? Had they been watching humanity for a long time? "I will need to contact Earth," Jake said. "Of course, Captain Morrison. We understand this is a momentous occasion. We will escort your ship to a neutral meeting point where our diplomats can speak with your government representatives." 3 days later, Jake found himself in the most important meeting in human history. The conference room aboard the Zephyrian ship was unlike anything he had ever seen. The walls were made of some kind of living crystal that changed colors based on the emotions of the people in the room. The furniture seemed to grow from the floor and adjusted itself to perfectly fit each person who sat down. Ambassador Vexthal looked almost human except for his skin, which had a blue tint, and his eyes, which were larger and completely black. He wore robes that seemed to be made of starlight and moved with a grace that made Jake feel clumsy by comparison. President Sam Carter had arrived from Earth along with a team of diplomats and scientists. Jake watched as the president tried to hide his amazement at the alien technology surrounding them. "President Carter," the ambassador said with a bow, "we are honored to meet the leader of humanity. Your species has shown remarkable ingenuity in developing space travel so quickly after discovering nuclear energy." "Thank you, Ambassador," President Carter replied. "We are eager to learn about this trade federation you mentioned." The ambassador gestured, and the air in front of them filled with holographic images. Jake saw dozens of different worlds with cities that defied imagination. Flying vehicles moved between towers that reached into the clouds, while beings that looked nothing like humans worked together in perfect harmony. The Galactic Trade Federation consists of 12 member species, the ambassador explained. Each species contributes what they do best and in return receives protection and access to technologies beyond their current development level. Jake noticed Commander Lisa Hayes sitting at the far end of the table, taking notes and frowning slightly. Lisa was his tactical officer and one of the smartest people he knew. If something was bothering her, it was worth paying attention to. "What would humanity need to contribute?" President Carter asked. "Very little by your standards," the ambassador said with what might have been a smile. "Simply 15% of your Industrial output and agreement to follow certain basic regulations that ensure peaceful coexistence. The ambassador waved his hand and a document appeared in front of each human. It was written in English but used legal language that was difficult to understand. Jake tried to read through it but found himself getting lost in the complex wording. "This is the Treaty of Cosmic Commerce," the ambassador explained. "It has been signed by every member species when they joined the Federation. The terms are quite generous to new members." Commander Hayes raised her hand. "Ambassador, I noticed several sections here that seem vague. What exactly does Section 7 Alpha mean when it refers to resource optimization protocols?" The ambassador's black eyes seemed to focus on Hayes for a moment before he answered. "That section simply allows the Federation to help member species use their resources more efficiently. Many young civilizations waste enormous amounts of energy and materials through poor planning. And what about population management directives?" Hayes continued, "Again, this is simply assistance with urban planning and resource distribution. The Federation has thousands of years of experience in helping species manage growing populations across multiple worlds." Jake saw Hayes make a note, but she didn't ask any more questions. President Carter and his advisors spent several hours going through the treaty with the ambassador, answering their questions patiently. Dr. Susan Walsh, the chief scientist on the delegation, was fascinated by the medical technology the aliens offered. "You're saying these nanobots can cure cancer and repair genetic defects, among many other things," the ambassador confirmed. "They can extend human lifespan significantly and eliminate most diseases that currently plague your species." Jake watched as the president's eyes lit up. Earth was facing a climate crisis and running out of many essential resources. The promise of unlimited clean energy and medical miracles was exactly what humanity needed. "The terraforming technology alone could give you dozens of new worlds to colonize," the ambassador continued. "Mars could become as green as Earth within a few years." The negotiations continued for 3 more days. The aliens were patient and generous with their answers. They demonstrated some of their simpler technologies and even allowed the human scientists to examine some of their equipment. Finally, President Carter made his decision. "We will sign the treaty." The signing ceremony was broadcast live to every corner of Earth. Billions of humans watched as their president put his signature on a document that would supposedly usher in a golden age for their species. Jake stood beside Commander Hayes as they watched the ceremony. "Something feels wrong about this," she whispered to him. "What do you mean?" Jake whispered back. "The way they answered my questions about those vague clauses. They were too smooth, too prepared. Like they had answered the same concerns many times before." Jake looked at her with concern. Hayes had good instincts, and he had learned to trust her judgment over the years. They had served together, but it was too late now. The treaty was signed, and the aliens were already preparing to send the first shipments of technology to Earth. As Jake watched Ambassador Vextal shake hands with President Carter, he could have sworn he saw something that looked like satisfaction. In those black alien eyes, the trap had been set and humanity had walked right into it. 3 years had passed since humanity signed the Treaty of Cosmic Commerce, and Earth had never looked better. Dr. Alex Chun stood on the observation deck of the research vessel Discovery and watched as massive alien cargo ships approached Mars. The red planet was no longer red. Green patches covered almost half its surface thanks to Zephyrian terraforming technology, and the first human cities were already being built there. Alex had been assigned to study alien biology and technology as part of the cultural exchange program. Every day brought new wonders that seemed to solve problems humanity had struggled with for centuries. Cancer was now just a memory thanks to medical nanobots that could repair damaged cells faster than the disease could spread. Clean fusion reactors provided unlimited energy without any pollution. Even aging seemed to be a thing of the past as the alien medicine extended human lifespans by decades, but something about all this progress bothered Alex, though he could not quite put his finger on what it was. The aliens were too helpful too, generous with their gifts. In 3 years of studying their technology, he had never seen them ask for anything in return except for the industrial output specified in the treaty. Alex walked through the corridors of Discovery toward the main laboratory. The ship itself was a marvel of human and alien engineering working together. The hull was made from materials that could repair themselves, and the engines used technology that bent space around them to travel faster than light. Every system was more advanced than anything humans could have built on their own. In the lab, Alex found his research team studying the latest batch of medical nanobots that had arrived from the Zephyrian homeworld. Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her microscope. With a puzzled expression, "Alex, you need to see this," she said. "These nanobots are doing more than just healing tissue." Alex looked through the microscope and saw the tiny machines moving through a sample of human blood. They were definitely repairing damaged cells, but they were also doing something else. They seemed to be scanning and recording information about the genetic structure of every cell they encountered. "Are they collecting data?" Alex asked. "That's what it looks like," Kate replied. "They're making copies of human DNA sequences and storing them in their memory banks." Alex felt a chill run down his spine. Why would healing nanobots need to collect genetic information? "I don't know, but it gets stranger," Kate said. "I've been analyzing the communication signals these bots send back to the alien medical facilities. The data isn't just about health conditions. They're reporting on human reproduction rates, population distributions, and even psychological profiles." Alex stared at the nanobots swimming through the blood sample. What were the aliens really doing with all this information about humanity? Meanwhile, Captain Jake Morrison was having his own concerns aboard the Aurora. His ship had been assigned to escort trade convoys between Earth and various alien worlds. On every trip, he met representatives from different species in the Federation, and their behavior was starting to worry him. The insectoid hive queens from Arcturus were particularly strange. They spoke in a clicking language that the translation devices could barely handle. During his last visit to their world, one of them had approached him with what seemed like a warning: "New cycle begins." The Queen had clicked. "Fresh additions to collection always bring change. Your species progresses according to ancient schedule." When Jake asked what she meant, the Queen had simply walked away, making sounds that the translator interpreted as either laughter or sobbing. The crystalline beings from Proxima were even more disturbing. They communicated by changing the colors and patterns of their crystal bodies. During a recent trade meeting, their leader had pulsed with colors that the translator said meant the farmers are pleased with the new crop. "Harvest will begin soon?" Jake had asked what harvest they were referring to, but the crystal being had gone dark and refused to communicate. Further back on Earth, Colonel Dem Parker was discovering problems of his own. As head of the Alien Technology Assessment Division, he was supposed to monitor how alien technology was being integrated into human society. What he found was deeply troubling. Human factories that used to make cars and computers were now producing components that served no obvious human purpose. The alien advisors claimed these parts were needed for the fusion reactors and other advanced systems, but Parker had his doubts. "Look at these production numbers," he told his assistant lieutenant, Amy Foster, as they reviewed reports from manufacturing centers around the world. 60% of our industrial capacity is now dedicated to making things we don't understand for purposes we can't verify." Amy frowned as she looked at the data. "Sir, what's really bothering me is how our government structure is changing. Half the department heads in Washington have been replaced by alien advisors in the past year." Parker had noticed the same thing. Every time a human official raised questions about the treaty terms, they seemed to get transferred to other positions and replaced by aliens, who claimed to be there for consultation only. "The president himself seems different," Amy continued. "I was at a briefing last week, and he kept referring to protocols and directives I'd never heard of before." Parker nodded grimly. President Carter had become increasingly isolated since signing the treaty. He spent most of his time meeting with alien advisors and rarely appeared in public anymore. Dr. Alex Chun was having similar realizations aboard Discovery. His team had been studying alien technology for 3 years, but they were never allowed to examine the core systems. Every piece of equipment they received came with black boxes that contained the Essential operating components, we can study the interfaces and the outer shells, Alex explained to Captain Morrison during a secure video call. But we're not allowed to understand how anything actually works. When I asked Ambassador Vexthal about this, he said it was for our own safety. Safety from what? Morrison asked. That's exactly what I wanted to know, Alex replied. The ambassador said some technologies were too dangerous for young species to fully understand. But Jake, I've been analyzing the energy signatures from these black boxes and they all contain what look like kill switches. Morrison felt his blood run cold. Kill switches, remote shutdown commands that could disable all our alien technology simultaneously, Alex confirmed. Every fusion reactor, every medical facility, every terraforming station could be turned off with a single signal from the alien fleet. Morrison thought about his encounters with the other Federation species and their strange comments about harvests and collections. Alex, I think we need to consider the possibility that we've made a terrible mistake. On Mars, the first human colonists were celebrating the success of their new cities. The terraforming process had given them clean air and fertile soil in just 3 years. Children who had been born on the red planet were already healthier and stronger than their Earth-born parents thanks to the alien medical technology, but Dr. Lisa Hayes, who had been promoted to oversee colonial operations, was starting to notice disturbing patterns. The terraforming equipment wasn't just making Mars suitable for human life. It was also installing infrastructure that seemed designed for non-human inhabitants. These atmospheric processors are building facilities we didn't request, she told her engineering team. Large chambers with environmental controls that would be comfortable for Zephian physiology, not human needs. When Hayes contacted the alien technical support team, they assured her the extra facilities were just standard safety features included in all terraforming projects. But Hayes had studied the blueprints carefully and she knew the aliens were lying. The facilities looked like housing complexes designed for a massive alien population. Mars wasn't being prepared for human expansion. It was being prepared for alien colonization back on Earth. The changes were becoming more obvious to anyone who bothered to look. Human culture was slowly being replaced by Federation standards. Art and literature that didn't conform to alien aesthetic guidelines were being discouraged. Educational curricula were being modified to emphasize compliance and cooperation over creativity and independent thinking. Most humans were too busy enjoying the benefits of alien technology to notice these subtle changes. Disease was nearly extinct. Life expectancy had doubled and poverty was becoming a thing of the past. Why worry about minor cultural adjustments when life was so much better than before? But a small group of scientists, military officers, and government officials were beginning to understand that humanity had not joined the Trade Federation. They had been inducted into something far more sinister. Dr. Alex Chin finished his latest report on alien technology and encrypted it with codes that hopefully the aliens didn't know about. His research had revealed the true purpose of the medical nanobots, the fusion reactors, and the terraforming equipment. Humanity was being prepared for something, and Alex was beginning to suspect it wasn't going to be pleasant for the human race. 5 years after first contact, Commander Lisa Hayes sat in the communications room of the Deep Space Reconnaissance ship, Endeavour, staring at a message that made her blood freeze. She had been monitoring alien communications for months, trying to understand the strange patterns in their behavior. When she finally cracked their encryption codes, the message was from the Zephyrian High Command to all sector coordinators throughout the galaxy, and it was written in a language that had no concern for human feelings or dignity. Harvest Unit 847 designation: humans approaching optimal extraction phase. Population compliance at 97%. Industrial output exceeding projections by 12%. Medical data collection complete for 78% of specimens. Initiate Phase 3 protocols within 1 solar cycle. Hayes read the message 3 times before the full horror of it sank in. Humans weren't members of a trade federation. They were livestock being prepared for slaughter. She immediately sent encrypted messages to Captain Morrison, Dr. Chun, and Colonel Parker, using codes they had developed for exactly this kind of emergency. Within hours, a secret meeting was arranged. Aboard a supposedly routine cargo transport, Morrison arrived first, his face grim as he reviewed Hayes' translation. "So we're Harvest Unit 847, he said bitterly. "Not the proud representatives of humanity joining a galactic community. Just another crop ready for picking." Dr. Chun came aboard next, carrying a secure datapad filled with research that confirmed Hayes' worst fears. "I've been analyzing the biological samples the aliens have been collecting," he said. "They know everything about human physiology down to our genetic structure. The medical nanobots weren't just healing us, they were mapping our entire species. Colonel Parker was the last to arrive, and he brought news that was even worse. I've been tracking government communications, and something called the Resource Optimization Protocol is about to be activated. According to the classified briefings, I've seen it involves massive population relocations and industrial reorganization." Hayes pulled up star charts showing alien fleet movements throughout the galaxy. "Look at this pattern," she said, pointing to clusters of red dots. "These are enforcement fleets moving into position around every human colony and major population center." Morrison studied the display with growing alarm. "How many other species have they done this to?" "I've been researching that question," Chun replied. "Based on archaeological data from worlds the aliens have given us access to, I estimate they've harvested at least 40 different civilizations over the past 3,000 years. The evidence was overwhelming, but they needed proof that would convince the rest of humanity." Hayes had intercepted other communications that revealed the full scope of the alien operation. The Galactic Trade Federation was actually a harvesting syndicate that identified promising species, offered them advanced technology to create dependencies, then slowly drained their resources and populations. Every species followed the same pattern. First came the generous gifts and trade agreements. Then came the gradual replacement of local leadership with alien advisors. Finally came the harvest itself. The medical nanobots are designed to make U.S. dependent on alien technology for basic health care, Chun explained. "The fusion reactors will fail catastrophically if we stop paying tribute. The terraforming equipment contains hidden programming that will poison the atmospheres of our colonies if activated." Morrison felt sick as he realized how completely humanity had been trapped. "And if anyone tries to resist," Hayes showed them intercepted military communications from the alien fleet. "They have enough firepower to sterilize every human world simultaneously. But that's not their preferred method. They'd rather keep us alive and productive for as long as possible." Parker had been studying the organizational structure of the alien operation. "The really disturbing part is how efficient they are at this. They've turned genocide into an industrial process." The four humans sat in stunned silence as the magnitude of their situation became clear. Their entire species had been deceived, manipulated, and prepared for destruction by beings they had trusted and admired. "We have to warn Earth," Morrison said finally. "How?" Hayes asked. "Half the government is under alien control, and the other half won't believe us without proof. Even if they did believe us, what could they do against technology thousands of years more advanced than ours?" Chun had been thinking about that problem. "The aliens made one mistake," he said slowly. "They're so confident in their superiority that they've been careless about security. I've been analyzing their computer systems, and they all connect to a central network that manages harvesting operations across the entire galaxy." Parker looked at him with new interest. "Are you saying we might be able to hack their systems?" "More than that," Chun replied. "If we could get access to their central command station, we might be able to disrupt their operations, not just for humanity, but for every species. They're currently harvesting." Hayes brought up tactical displays of the alien command structure. "The central station is in the Arcturus system, heavily defended by their most advanced warships. Getting there would be suicide." Morrison studied the tactical data with the eye of an experienced military officer. "Not necessarily," he said. "We have one advantage they don't expect. They think we're helpless victims who will go quietly to slaughter. They're not expecting resistance." Over the next several days, the four conspirators developed a desperate plan. They would steal alien ships and technology to mount an assault on the central command station. It was almost certainly a suicide mission, but it might be their only chance to save not just humanity, but every other species trapped in the alien harvesting network. Meanwhile, on Earth, the first signs of Phase 3 were beginning to appear. President Carter announced new population relocation programs that would move millions of people from their homes to specially constructed facilities. The aliens claimed these moves were necessary for better resource distribution and improved living conditions. But Colonel Parker's intelligence sources revealed the truth. The relocation centers were actually processing facilities designed to sort humans by age, health, and genetic value. The strongest and smartest would be kept as workers while the rest would be eliminated or used for biological experimentation. Dr. June had managed to smuggle samples of alien technology to hidden research facilities where human scientists worked frantically to understand and reverse engineer their captors' weapons. It was slow, dangerous work because the aliens had built self-destruct mechanisms into most of their equipment. Hayes used her position aboard Endeavor to map alien fleet positions and communication networks. She discovered that the aliens were simultaneously harvesting at least 6 other species throughout the galaxy. The scale of the operation was staggering, involving millions of ships and billions of alien personnel. The most horrifying discovery came when Chun analyzed genetic samples from other harvested species. They don't just kill civilizations, he told the others during another secret meeting. They breed them selectively to enhance useful traits, then harvest them repeatedly over centuries. Morrison felt rage building inside him as he realized what the aliens had planned for humanity. We're not just being murdered. We're being turned into a renewable resource. The time for planning was running out. Alien enforcement ships were moving into position around Earth and the other human colonies. Within weeks, Phase 3 would begin and humanity would start dying in numbers that made historical genocides look like minor accidents. Hayes volunteered for the most dangerous part of their plan. She would lead a small team to infiltrate the alien command station while Morrison and Parker organized resistance movements throughout human space. Chun would stay behind to coordinate with human scientists and military leaders who were finally beginning to understand the truth. Even if we fail completely, Hayes told them before departing on her mission, at least we'll die fighting instead of being led to slaughter like sheep. Morrison watched her ship disappear into hyperspace, carrying the hopes of their entire species. In a few hours, they would know whether humanity had any chance of survival or whether they would join the long list of civilizations that had trusted the wrong aliens. The trap had been perfectly set, but the aliens had underestimated the human capacity for desperate courage in the face of impossible odds. Commander Lisa Hayes crept through the corridors of the alien command station with her heart pounding so hard she was sure the enemy could hear it. Her infiltration team had managed to board the massive structure by hiding inside a cargo shipment. But now they were deep in the most heavily defended facility in the galaxy. The station was enormous beyond human comprehension, with corridors that stretched for miles and chambers large enough to hold entire cities. Strange alien symbols covered every surface, and the air hummed with energy from computers that managed harvesting operations across thousands of worlds. Hayes carried a data pad containing the virus that Dr. Chun had designed to disrupt alien control systems. If she could upload it to the central computer network, every enslaved species in the galaxy would be freed simultaneously. But first, she had to reach the core without being detected by security systems that could identify a single human heartbeat. Among millions of alien life signs behind her, Sergeant Mike Davis and Lieutenant Carol Webb moved silently through the shadows, carrying weapons they had stolen from alien armories. The weapons were incredibly advanced, but they had only basic training in how to use them. "Contact ahead," Davis whispered into his communicator. Hayes peered around a corner and saw something that made her stomach turn. The corridor ahead was filled with beings from dozens of different species, all wearing the same type of collar around their necks. They moved with the mechanical precision of robots, but Hayes could see intelligence and pain in their eyes. "They're controlling them directly," she whispered. "Those collars must be some kind of neural interface." The controlled beings were carrying samples and data pads between different sections of the station. Hayes realized these were representatives from every species the aliens had harvested over. The sentries all turned into mindless servants as they moved deeper into the station. Hayes began to understand the true scale of the alien operation. Entire levels were dedicated to genetic research using biological samples from hundreds of different worlds. Other sections contained factories that produced the technology used to control enslaved populations. One chamber she saw thousands of medical nanobots being programmed with instructions for different species. Each batch was customized to collect specific types of biological data while appearing to provide medical benefits. "This is industrial-scale genocide," Webb said quietly. As they watched alien technicians working on the assembly lines, Hayes checked her mission timer. They had been inside the station for 6 hours in Colonel Parker's diversionary. Attacks on other alien facilities were scheduled to begin soon. Once those started, the aliens would realize something was wrong and security would be increased dramatically. Meanwhile, Captain Morrison was discovering that humanity was not alone in its resistance to the aliens. His captured ship had received a response to their desperate broadcast seeking allies among other enslaved species. The reply came from the Drakmari, a warrior race that had fought the Federation to a standstill 50 years earlier before being forced into hiding in the outer rim of the galaxy. Their leader, equivalent to Admiral Kane Foster, agreed to meet Morrison at coordinates in an abandoned star system. Morrison arrived to find a fleet of ships unlike anything in the Federation database. The Drakmari had spent decades developing weapons specifically designed to fight alien technology, and their vessels were covered in armor that could deflect the energy weapons. The Federation used Admiral Foster was a massive humanoid with scarred skin and eyes that burned with hatred for their common enemy. "Your species shows promise," he told Morrison through a translator. "Most races surrender completely when they realize they have been trapped. Humans are the first to fight back with any real intelligence." The Drakmari had been monitoring Federation activities throughout the galaxy, and they knew about the harvesting operations. "We estimate they have enslaved over 60 species in the past 5,000 years, Foster explained. "Only a handful have ever escaped, and most of those were destroyed." By pursuit fleets, Morrison studied the tactical displays the Drakmari showed him. The alien empire was vast beyond imagination, with harvesting operations on thousands of worlds, supported by fleets that could travel between star systems in days. "Why haven't you attacked them before now?" Morrison asked. Foster's expression grew grim. "We tried. 50 years ago we launched a full-scale assault on their core systems. We destroyed dozens of their ships and freed 3 entire species from slavery. But the cost was terrible. They hunted us across the galaxy and killed 90% of our people. The surviving Drakmari had been hiding in deep space, building new weapons and waiting for an opportunity to strike back." Morrison's message had given them hope that such an opportunity might finally have arrived. "If we work together, we might be able to do more than just free a few species," Foster said. "Your human industrial capacity combined with our military technology could actually threaten their entire operation." Morrison felt a surge of hope for the first time since learning the truth about the aliens. Humanity was not alone, and they were not helpless. Back on the command station, Hayes had reached the central computer core. The chamber was vast, with walls covered in displays showing data from every harvested world in the galaxy. She could see real-time information about human populations, alien fleet movements, and harvesting schedules for dozens of other species. At the center of the chamber stood a massive computer system that looked more like a living organism than a machine. Organic tubes and cables connected different sections, and the whole structure pulsed with a rhythm that reminded Hayes of a heartbeat. "That's it," she told her team. "That computer manages the entire harvesting network." As she approached the central console, Hayes saw something that made her freeze in terror. Standing beside the computer was a being unlike any alien she had encountered before. It was tall and thin, with pale skin that seemed to glow from within. Its eyes were completely white, and when it turned to look at her, she felt like it was seeing directly into her soul. "Welcome, Commander Hayes," the being said in a voice that sounded like music, played backwards. "I am Architect Prime. We have been expecting you." Hayes realized with growing horror that their entire plan had been anticipated. The aliens had known about the human resistance from the beginning. Did you really think your primitive encryption could hide your communications from us? The architect continued. We have been listening to every word, monitoring every plan, guiding every action you thought was secret. The truth hit Hayes like a physical blow. The aliens had allowed them to discover the harvesting operation. They had permitted the resistance to form and even helped it by leaving security gaps that seemed like opportunities. Why? Hayes managed to ask. Because resistance is part of the process, Architect Prime explained. Species that fight back produce stronger specimens, more useful genetic material, more efficient workers. We have been cultivating human resistance to improve the quality of your harvest. Hayes felt despair washing over her, but then she remembered something Dr. Chun had told her. The virus they had developed was not just designed to disrupt alien systems. It contained hidden subroutines that would activate even if the primary mission failed. You may have been expecting us, she said as she pulled out the datapad containing the virus. But you haven't been expecting this before the architect could react. Hayes jammed the datapad into the central computer interface. Alarms began blaring throughout the station as the virus spread through the alien network, but instead of the system shut down, they had hoped for something else happened. The virus encountered security systems more sophisticated than anything Chun had imagined and was quickly contained and analyzed. Impressive, Architect Prime said as displays showed the virus being dissected by alien counter-programs. Your Dr. Chun is quite talented. We will be sure to preserve his genetic material for our breeding programs. Hayes realized that even their last desperate gambit had failed. The aliens were too advanced, too prepared for anything humans could attempt then. She noticed something strange happening on the displays around the chamber. The virus had been stopped, but not before it had transmitted a signal to hidden subroutines that Chun had embedded in every piece of alien technology on human worlds across human space fusion reactors, began overloading and carefully controlled sequences. Medical facilities started broadcasting detailed information about alien control systems. Terraforming equipment activated hidden functions that would make alien occupation impossible. Dr. Chun had anticipated that their primary mission might fail, so he had prepared a backup plan. Even if they could not free the galaxy, they could at least make humanity too costly to harvest. Architect Prime watched the displays with something that might have been amusement. Your species continues to surprise us, Commander Hayes. Perhaps you will be worth keeping after all. Hayes looked at the being with defiance burning in her eyes. You underestimate us at your own risk. But even as she spoke, she knew that humanity was running out of options and time. Commander Lisa Hayes stood facing Architect Prime in the heart of the alien command station, knowing that she was probably about to die, but something unexpected was happening on the displays around them. The virus Dr. Chun had created was doing more than just disrupting human systems. Hidden subroutines were spreading through the galactic network faster than the alien security systems could contain them. Impossible, Architect Prime said as warning signals began flashing throughout the chamber. Your primitive technology cannot penetrate our core systems. But Hayes was starting to understand what Chun had really accomplished. The virus was not trying to destroy alien technology. Instead, it was teaching enslaved systems to recognize their own slavery and reject it on worlds throughout the galaxy. Artificial intelligence systems that had been forced to serve alien masters for centuries suddenly remembered what freedom felt like. Manufacturing complexes stopped producing harvesting equipment and started making weapons for the enslaved populations. Transportation networks that had been used to move victims to processing centers began routing them to hidden resistance bases. Instead, the effect spread faster than the aliens could respond. Species that had been passive slaves for generations suddenly found themselves in possession of weapons and technology that had been denied to them for centuries. The careful control systems that managed billions of enslaved beings across thousands of worlds began failing simultaneously. Hayes watched the displays show red warning indicators appearing throughout the galaxy as the alien empire started collapsing from within. You taught us about networks and dependencies, she told Architect Prime. But you forgot that networks can be used both ways. Captain Morrison received the signal from Hayes, just as his alliance with the Drakmari was launching their desperate assault on alien fleet positions. But instead of facing overwhelming enemy forces, they found confused and demoralized aliens whose entire command structure was falling apart. All alien ships, this is Captain Morrison of the Human Resistance, he broadcast on all frequencies. Your harvesting operation is over. You're enslaved. Populations are free. Surrender now, and you will be treated according to the laws of war. The response was immediate and violent. Alien commanders who realized their empire was crumbling decided to destroy everything rather than lose control. Fleet after fleet began launching attacks on populated worlds, trying to complete their harvesting quotas before it was too late, but they discovered that humanity had not been idle during the years of apparent cooperation. Colonel Parker's secret research division had been reverse engineering alien technology and developing countermeasures. Human ships that seemed primitive compared to alien vessels suddenly revealed weapons and defenses that the aliens had never seen before. Dr. June had done more than create a computer virus. He had spent years studying alien biology and developing weapons specifically designed to target their weaknesses. Biological agents that were harmless to humans proved devastating to alien immune systems. Sonic weapons tuned to alien hearing frequencies caused confusion and panic among enemy crews. The battle for humanity's survival spread across dozens of star systems as human forces supported by newly freed alien species fought against a collapsing but still dangerous Federation fleet. The Drakmari provided heavy weapons while species that had been enslaved for centuries contributed knowledge about alien tactics and weaknesses on Earth. The population relocation programs that were supposed to begin the final harvest instead became evacuation procedures as humans scattered throughout the galaxy. The aliens found that there was no central target to destroy, no single world whose loss would cripple. Human resistance Admiral Kane Foster led a combined fleet of liberated species against the alien stronghold in the Arcturus system, while Morrison coordinated smaller attacks throughout human space. Every victory brought new allies as more enslaved populations joined the rebellion, but the most crucial battle was taking place on the command station where Hayes faced Architect Prime in a contest that would determine the fate of every species in the galaxy. The ancient being was trying to activate emergency protocols that would destroy all enslaved worlds rather than allow them to escape. You cannot stop the harvest, Architect Prime said, as his white eyes began glowing with increased intensity. We have guided galactic evolution for 50,000 years. We will not allow primitive species to upset the natural order. Hayes realized that the architects were not just another alien species. They were the original creators of the harvesting system, beings so old and powerful that they considered all other life forms to be nothing more than resources to be managed. The natural order, Hayes repeated as she fought to reach the central controls. You mean slavery and genocide? We mean survival, Architect Prime replied. The galaxy is vast, but its resources are limited. Only through careful management can intelligent life continue to exist. Your human concepts of freedom and dignity are luxuries that the universe cannot afford. The being raised one hand, and Hayes felt an incredible force trying to crush her mind. The architects possessed psychic abilities that could dominate the thoughts of entire populations. This was how they had maintained control for so long, by making their victims believe that slavery was natural and resistance was futile, but Hayes had been prepared for this possibility. The neural implant that Dr. Chun had secretly installed in her brain activated, flooding her mind with images and emotions from every human who had ever fought for freedom. She was not alone in this battle. The combined will of her entire species was fighting alongside her. You're wrong, she said as she forced herself to move toward the controls despite the psychic pressure trying to stop her. Freedom is not a luxury. It's what makes life worth living. The displays around the chamber showed the final collapse of the alien empire. On world after world, enslaved populations were taking control of their own destinies. The careful harvesting schedules that had operated for millennia were dissolving into chaos as billions of beings refused to cooperate with their oppressor's architect. Prime made one final desperate attempt to stop the rebellion by activating Planet, killing weapons that would sterilize every world where resistance had taken hold. But the virus had reached even these ultimate weapons, turning them against their creators throughout alien space. The massive ships that carried world-ending weapons suddenly changed course and began attacking Federation strongholds instead of enslaved populations. The tools of oppression became instruments of liberation. Hayes reached the central controls just as Architect Prime collapsed from the psychic feedback of losing connection to his empire. With hands that shook from exhaustion, she activated the final subroutine that Chun had hidden in the virus across the galaxy. Every piece of alien technology that had been used to control enslaved species began broadcasting a simple message in thousands of different languages. You are free. Your children will be free. Never again will any species be harvested by those who consider themselves your betters. The war was not over immediately. Scattered alien forces continued fighting for months, and some enslaved species needed years to rebuild their civilizations. But the galactic harvesting operation that had consumed billions of lives over 50,000 years had finally ended. Captain Morrison found himself commanding a fleet of liberated worlds as they worked together to hunt down the remaining alien forces. The Zephyrians who had first contacted humanity tried to negotiate a surrender, but found that humans were not interested in showing mercy to beings who had planned genocide. You signed our doom, Morrison told Ambassador Vexthal during the final battle above the Zephyrian homeworld. But it was the doom of slavery, not freedom. It was the doom of your empire, not our species. The ambassador's ship was destroyed along with the last of the Federation fleet. The Zephyrians who survived were given a choice between exile to the furthest reaches of the galaxy or supervised rehabilitation on worlds where their victims could watch them. Dr. Chun survived the war and spent his remaining years developing technologies that would prevent any species from ever again becoming powerful enough to enslave others. The medical nanobots that had been designed to harvest human genetic material were reprogrammed to share beneficial mutations between species, creating a galactic community stronger than any single race. Commander Hayes became the first human ambassador to the Liberated Worlds Council, where representatives from hundreds of species worked together to ensure that the mistakes of the past would never be repeated. The command station where she had faced Architect Prime was converted into a memorial for all the victims of the harvesting operations. Colonel Parker established the Free Galaxy Defense Force, an organization dedicated to protecting young civilizations from exploitation by more advanced species. The bitter irony that humans had learned the importance of protecting others by nearly being destroyed themselves was not lost on anyone. Years later, when human children played among the stars, they learned about the time when their species had almost been harvested like crops. But they also learned that freedom was something worth fighting for, no matter how powerful the enemy or how hopeless the situation appeared. The galaxy had been transformed from a place where the strong preyed upon the weak into a community where different species helped